Hey everyone, and welcome to yet another episode of Finding Fandom. And today I have with me the hardcover comic themselves, both Mike and Matt from the Hardcover Comics channel. And I had just a blast talking with them, and it was just so much fun because I've watched these guys doing their own thing with their channel and everything, and seeing how they appreciate the books that they read and also reread, as I try to do myself with my own collection. So I really felt connected with them, and of course also getting into the custom binds that they are into, talking a little about that. And yeah, all my thanks to Matt and Mike for doing this interview with me. And now, for all of you that clicked on this, here is Matt and Mike from the Hardcover Comic. Enjoy. Hey everyone, what's going on? This is European Comic Center, and welcome to yet another episode of Finding Fandom. And today I have none other with me than the hardcover comics themselves, Matt and Mike. Welcome, you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, this is exciting.
This is awesome.
My pleasure. And I hope you two gentlemen are doing fine this evening/morning we're having.
Yeah, no, things are going good. My kids are still wide awake, but it's all right.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk comics with both the sun and the moon out at the same time. It's wild.
It's good. Now we both have pale on them, so we know we're both each there. Okay, guys. I mean, I don't know where to start, so I usually start with the most generic question out there, just to see if we have some common ground on how you two discovered comic books to actually get into this YouTubing and everything. It has to start somewhere, and I guess it's how did you discover comic books?
Mike, you want to go first? Or you want me to go first?
I can go first. So I haven't filled in all the details of like my first trip ever, but I remember as a kid, maybe being 8 years old, going with I was with my grandma in this place called Streetsville in Mississauga, Ontario, Canada, and we walked by this comic shop. I saw like a Spider-Man poster on a door, taped to a door, leading down these like sketchy stairs into basically what was a comic book store. And I saw that Spider-Man poster. I got excited. We went into this comic book store, and I was just looking around. Like, I had no idea what was what. The guy was trying to help us out, but I was just fixated on finding some kind of Spider-Man book. So I remember walking out of the store that day. My grandma had bought me one of the issues. Was like I forget what issue it was, but it had Silver Sable in the cover and Black Study. That's all. Then the other thing I got was like an Essential Spider-Man, one of those thick black and white trade paperbacks. I don't know if you guys ever read those, but
I've seen them.
Yeah, that was one of the other, which was a good move because it's black and white. It's not an expensive book. I was 8 years old. I demolished it.
It's basically a color book.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a coloring book, and that was like how I got into it as a kid. And then when I was in high school, my friends introduced me to Dark Knight Returns and Sinestro Corps War. Those were the two stories. I was like, all right, it's over for me. I need to find out more about comics and DC at that point, but comics in general. So those two stories, Dark Knight Returns and Sinestro Corps War, are definitely always going to have a special place in my heart.
Nice.
Very nice.
Yeah.
How about you, Mike? Matt? Sorry. No, this is gonna happen once or twice.
No, you're good. Eminem. So yeah, when I was growing up, I saw Batman 89. When Batman 89 came out, it was like right before, like shortly before my 7th birthday. And I was just awestruck because previous to that, my only experience to Batman was Batman 66 reruns and watch them at my grandma's house and stuff after school. That was like my only experience to Batman. And then I saw Batman 89, and I saw the trailer, and I was like, this isn't the Batman. Like, what is this? This isn't Batman. It was great. So I convinced my parents to take me for my birthday, and we went, and I was absolutely blown away. And it just completely opened up a whole new world for me. But at the time, being 7 years old, I wasn't really reading a lot. And so right around my 9th birthday is when I kind of wanted to start reading more. And I asked my dad to take me to our local comic shop. And he did, and I went and picked out my very first comic book ever, which is What If number 29, which was What If Captain America had formed the Avengers. And it was such an epic title. I read it so many times that like the cover fell off and the book just kind of fell apart over the years. And it was really cool, actually, because one of our old listeners from our old podcast heard that I really liked that book. And he's actually located in the UK, and he actually mailed me a copy of it as like a gift. So I actually have it back in my collection now, which is really awesome. The first comic book I ever owned. Awesome. And so after that, then I just kind of started branching out in other heroes, Spider-Man, things like that. And then I hit junior high. I was really big into like the Marvel collectors cards, like the Marvel Universe cards and things like that from the early mid 90s. Yeah. And then high school hit, and I kind of was like, oh, well, it's not cool to read comics and stuff in high school, in the 90s. Like, you were a nerd if you did that stuff. So I kind of subdued my love for comics. Like, it was always there, but I kind of had to hide it, because I didn't want it. Nowadays it's completely different. But back then it was very much, you didn't want people to know that you read comics. It was very underground. Yeah. And after I graduated high school, I said, you know what, man, like, I love comics. That's just all there is to it. Like, I'm just going to read comics. And around that time was when the Ultimate Universe that Marvel was doing started. So like Ultimate Spider-Man, Ultimate X-Men, Fantastic Four. And I started reading those, and I was like, oh, this is so awesome. And it was just so exciting to get back into it. And it just kind of took off from there. And I kind of really got back into it. But I was a major Marvel fan throughout my whole life. Never read DC except for like Batman, and that was about it. And then Mike and we met through our podcast, and he turned me on to the world of DC. And now I'm like way more DC than I am Marvel. I actually love DC comics, and it's fun because I get to go back and read 30, 40, 50 years worth of comics that I've never even heard or read before because I only stuck to Marvel. So it's really exciting, and I absolutely love it. But so that's kind of how I guess I got all into it.
Nice. That's dope. And I really liked how both of your origins and the strongest stories that got you in was DC and Marvel separately, and then affecting each other. Maybe Mike affected you a little more with DC, and I'm all for that, actually, because I'm a DC guy at heart. I always say really shouldn't take a side with this hobby, but sometimes you just do and find affection for one or another.
Well, that's what I always wonder is, do I just really not enjoy like what Marvel writers are doing, or do I have some kind of ingrained hate for Marvel books? Because I'll try to read like a Donny Cates Marvel book, but it just doesn't click for me. I don't know why. I've tried.
Yeah, but just because you love one of the companies doesn't mean that you hate the other necessarily. It's just that they are the two strongest polar opposites. So one would assume the strongest opinions about them both if you have a strong one about the other.
Yeah. People have given us both some crap for not talking enough Marvel.
Okay,
it happens, but I ain't gonna force myself.
Yeah, but let's talk about that then, about your content on your channel itself, because of course you're a guest here, so you have your own creative content platform, and that is number one, YouTube in this case. And what got you into starting this channel?
I'll let Mike take over, because it all started with Mike initially. I kind of joined later on, so I'll let Mike kind of discuss the origins.
I think it also kind of goes back to this podcast Matt and I used to do, where we started doing videos for this podcast, and I guess I had creative differences with one of the I don't want to call him like the leader of the podcast, but he often tried to manage it. And
one of the guys, one of the 4 guys in the podcast.
Yeah, not Matt. I'll definitely say that.
The podcast we're referring to is 4 Guys in a Comic.
4 Guys in a
yes.
Comic. That's it. Yeah. Didn't want to plug him because they don't sponsor us.
Ah.
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. It's a fun podcast. We had some fun interviews on there, but so I wanted to do these overview type videos where I just focus on the book. I talk about the book. And typically, they were omnis that I was getting at the time. And obviously I'd seen other channels like Riley's channel, and a few others. I'm pretty sure yours was even one of them that was sort of coming up around that time. And anyway, we were going to do it all under 4 Guys in a Comic. There were some creative differences there, and I just started doing them on my own channel. And eventually Matt was like, hey man, I kind of want to jump in. And I was like, yeah, of course. Like we could really do something wild and fun and exciting with both of us involved. And I mean, that for me, it was just, I guess finding comics, and especially, hardcovers and stuff. I used to enjoy reading novels as a kid a lot. And I sort of lost that in high school. And especially when I was getting into like starting university, my first year, it was just a lot of studying, a lot of partying. And I don't know, it was nice to I guess rediscover comics and have them draw me back in and make me forget about the stresses of, my real life with studying and all that stuff. And having these like beautiful hardcover editions where like these incredible stories were collected in an incredible format that like any one of my books I would gladly give to like an adult that I respect and be like, look how amazing these comics are now. It's not just like a cheap magazine piece of paper. Like this is an incredible book I would want to display in an amazing case. So all of that just combined together into me wanting to make videos. And it's an expensive hobby too. A lot of these books cost a lot of money. I think it helps people. It helped me when I was buying books to find a couple of videos online, get a feel for what the book looks like, and make a decision based on that. So that was a part of it as well, helping others out before they make a big purchase.
Yeah, I felt that too going into this, or more so lately on. In the beginning, it was more like, okay, these guys shows off some pretty cool books. I want to show off some pretty cool books as well.
Yeah.
And of course, you just buy them in the beginning and just show them up in the camera, then read them. Then you start to form your opinion, actually.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I didn't do many review videos, so it was pretty shallow opinions. I mean, I picked this up. This cover looked cool. The artist is cool and everything. When it's the writer, you maybe really should highlight the story itself. But I mean, it's not shallow per se, but that's the entry point. I mean, because the cover is what draws you in, right?
Yeah.
And of course, wanting to stretch out a hand to reach out to the community by making the videos. Because I don't even think that the YouTube channel that inspired me to go on is still on. And he's also Canadian, actually.
Oh, nice.
Also named Matt. And he is the biggest Green Lantern fan out there. Every book, every single issue published, and so on and so forth. And action figures in the hardcovers and big Green Lantern replica.
Yeah, wow.
Sounds like my Canadian doppelganger.
Who knows? He inspired. He made all these videos about room tours and haul videos and everything, and that was what got me into it. Wanted to show off my own stuff and everything, and then of course later on, I've had a turn of mind and everything, and wanted to talk more about intentful purchasing and everything, because there's just as there are many YouTube channels out there about comic books and everything, there are so many comic books, just so much content out there. So I wanted people to, if they found me, they could discover a new way or a different way of collecting, maybe a more essential path. So
Yeah.
one that doesn't really scream out the hustle to pick up every single book out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually owe Mike a lot to this. So, because when we were doing our show, like I knew what a trade paperback was. Obviously, I had tons of them. I was aware of like hardcovers and things like that, but I wasn't familiar with omnis at all. My local, because I didn't order anything online. I just went to my local shop. My local shop didn't carry that stuff, so I didn't even know that these things existed. And when we were doing our podcast, Mike was trying to sell us on Grant Morrison's Animal Man one day, and
So hard.
I just died laughing because the way he was explaining it to us, it was hilarious. First of all, I was like, "This sounds like the most ridiculous book in the world," and he's like, "No, yeah." He's like, "Just trust me, you just got it." Because the way he was explaining, he goes, "Well, this guy gets powers like a skunk," and I'm like, "What?" So it was the way he explained it. It was hilarious. But I was like, "Well, how can I read this? Like, how can I check it out?" And he goes, "Well, have you ever heard of like IST?" And I said, "No, what the hell's IST?" So Mike introduced me to the world of Instocktrades, and that was the first omnibus I bought was Animal Man, and then it was on their site, and I ordered it, and then it went away, and they were like, "Oh, sorry, we can't fulfill your order." So that became a white whale for me for a long time because I was like, "What the hell is going on?" So my first one is actually the Darkness Compendium, Volume 2, but I didn't even know what these were. And so when I got the Darkness, I was flipping through it and I was like, oh my God, like these are amazing. I didn't know they were presented in this format. They're oversized. This is incredible. And it just opened up this whole new world. And I just went like many collectors do in the very beginning, where you just go deep and just buy anything and everything. And you're like, check out all these major hauls I have. 6 months later, you're like, why? You're in debt. And you're like, why did I do this? And you're like selling everything off to pay back. So yeah. It was ridiculous. I went through that phase for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I owe Mike a lot of thanks for that because I didn't know what Instocktrades was. Hell, he even introduced me to custom binding. Like, I knew what a custom bind was because I had heard on a different podcast people talking about it. And so I was aware of what it was, but I'd never really seen one before, and I didn't understand how epic they could really be. And Mike's like, yeah, dude, go on to like Marvel Masterworks forums and just search on there. And there's like, you'll be blown away by some of the stuff that people have done. So we did. And we found, and I saw like Zaki Hassan's collection, which we've had on our show. And the dude's incredible. And his collection is amazing. And I fell in love with I was like, you can do this with comics? Like, I had no idea. So at that point, I immediately stopped collecting singles. I got rid of it. I just started like buying officials and got real big into custom binding. And it was all downhill from there. But again, it was all thanks to Mike, because if it wasn't for him, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure I would have found it sooner or later, but who knows when I would have found it and whatnot, So
Matt's wife hates me.
No, Mike's part of our family. We adopt him when he comes down.
Yeah, they're the best.
Yeah. Okay,
I think you touched on one really important thing though, and it's something that I think Matt helped me realize too. It's like when people get into this hardcover game, there's a huge FOMO wave that comes over you where you don't want to miss out on the newest book. You don't want to miss out on a book going out of print before you can get it and keep it shrink wrapped on your shelf until you read it maybe a year from now. And we've all been there. Like I've definitely been there. I was buying every book just because make a video.
Hardcover.
Yeah, it's an omnibus. Yeah, gotta catch them all,
Yeah.
And I think I've noticed you've made multiple videos about this, but Matt and I definitely have changed this way too, where we really prioritize things that we're gonna reread, books that we know we love, to the point where like we want to tell people about them over and over again sometimes.
Yeah.
Like Ice Cream Man. Go read Ice Cream Man if you haven't.
Ice Cream Man is
great. I have to do that. I know that I am waiting and holding on for a eventual hardcover collection. I think it is. I think it is inevitable.
Yeah, it's got to be. It has got to be.
How many paperbacks are out of that right now?
7-ish.
Oh my God!
I don't know. I know,
maybe
like
not quite 7. Maybe it's 5.
Yeah, because I think issue 26 comes out in September. I
Yeah,
want to
so maybe it's
say.
5 trade paperbacks.
So
Yeah.
that's still worth like
Oh,
2
yeah.
hardcovers then. Usually
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
collect 10 or to
There is
12
Yeah.
issues.
one hardcover that I almost bought when I discovered it, and then I looked at it, it's not worth the price. So there was a Comic-Con exclusive, like a San Diego Comic-Con exclusive hardcover of Ice Cream Man, but it only collects like the first 4 issues.
Okay.
And that's all that was out at the time, I think, when they did it. It was like sort of like a promotional exclusive thing, but it's so exclusive now that if you find it on eBay, people are selling it for like $100+. And I was like, yeah, 4 issues for $100. Like, I love this, like, but that's not worth it to me. I was like, I'll wait for the eventual official, or I'll just get all the trade paperbacks, chop them all up, and custom bind my own.
Yeah. And I mean, the justification, as you just said, you have to justify it for yourself before you buy into pretty much anything. And as we said with FOMO and everything, I think that justification has disappeared a bit. And in the beginning, you don't know what you like, so you dive into as many things as you can.
Right. Yep.
But then, if that still keeps holding on through your whole comic book career and everything, I mean, it's so much, as I said.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can spend hundreds and hundreds.
Yeah, and I've checked my own Instocktrade backlog. So let's talk about Instocktrades for a little while.
Mm-hmm.
Is that your number one platform to get your stuff per se? I know, Mike, for you in Canada, I guess that would be expensive with shipping and everything.
Yeah.
And tolls.
With the currency, the currency and the shipping, it's not really worth it. So I really only have Amazon, or, thanks to my storage room in Matt's house now.
This back closet over here is like full of boxes
books.
with books of Mike's that he has ordered over the last year that he still has to drive down and get.
Yeah.
He has probably over 100 books sitting in my closet right now.
It's kind of silly. We were supposed to see each other.
We were initially, and then COVID happened.
Yeah.
And so it's just been building up ever since. And now it's just getting to the point where I'm like, how many books can we get before you get down here? Like, it's turning into a running gag.
You're going to have to take a trailer back to Canada.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, it's going to be insane. You have to get like a big old 12-passenger conversion van. But yeah, so Instocktrades for me for the longest time was definitely my go-to place. But that has changed with the arrival of JP and organic price books. And I don't just say that because, yes, full disclosure, he is a sponsor of our channel. And he was actually just on our last live show that we did. And I absolutely love the dude. But it's full disclosure, he does spot, but it's not because of that. It's because he has amazing customer service. He has super fast shipping speeds, faster than I've ever experienced anywhere else. He's always trying to improve the business. He's always giving you back looks and things at what's happening behind the scenes, things that people don't understand or know. And he explains why books are priced the way they are, why his discounts are maybe not as high as Instocktrades because of volume and all this other stuff. Like, he really gives people insight to what the business is like, which I think is amazing. And my full-time job, I'm a manager of guest services for a major hotel chain. So I deal with customer service on a daily. So for me, customer service is very important. And so when I discovered the customer service side of that and started working with him a little bit more, I was blown away by his service and everything that he does. And so I have pretty much completely switched over to organic price books now going forward. And yes, he does send us some stuff, but I also buy a lot from him. So don't think like everything we get's free. It's not. I still pay him quite a chunk of change for books. And so yeah, but he's that's definitely our go-to right now. But for the longest time prior to him starting up his business, Instocktrades was definitely the go-to.
Yeah. I mean, Instocktrades is kind of a black box once you place your order. you have no idea what's happening. But with JP, like, you'll actually get a response within a reasonable amount of time. Yeah.
And if you message him, he responds in like an hour or two.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah, and of course, lately with the pandemic and everything, they were Instocktrades IST was hit with quadruple the amount of orders, lots of new collectors getting in, and then of course the whole omnibus wars every week, where there was a heavy Tuesday afternoon with several releases of new omnibus from both Marvel and DC.
And then it didn't help when the publishers switched from Diamond to, using random.
I almost forgot that.
That completely disrupted everything.
Yeah.
And so some of the stuff's not Instocktrades' fault, so I don't blame them by any stretch of the imagination. But it definitely was a perfect storm for JP to kind of swoop in and kind of be a superhero for a lot of people with his store. And from what I hear now, Instock has really picked back up and they're back to, I guess, normal, I guess you could say. They're not behind like they were. So that's awesome. And that's fantastic. And so I have to go with OPB going forward. But Instock was great, though. I'm not knocking them at all. They served me well for a few years there.
Yeah. And my personal choice is like their sister company, I guess you could call it, with DCBservice.com, which is their pre-ordering side of things, because I was just done with stressing out every Wednesday whenever I would accumulate enough titles that I felt, okay, now is the time to strike, because now there's a big omnibus release and I don't think that this one will wait for me. DC books often would wait because there's another scheduling plan there, or printing plan there, I guess. But I mean, I was just done at a certain point. I got my books, but I was still stressing sitting by the computer those days. And I just didn't want that anymore. So I started pre-ordering, and as well, during three or so months, I had to, of course, still buy my books from Instocktrades with the titles that I didn't have a chance to pre-order before discovering that method. So it took a while to completely convert into 100% pre-ordering. But now I'm at least getting my books, and I'm, of course, I live in Sweden, so I still have to pay customs and a shipping cost. So maybe I'm actually getting my books for cover price, but believe me, I still save money, because if Swedish comic books shops would buy them in, they would add up so much more to that total. So I'm still saving myself a couple of dollars by doing this. And of course, there's also the way that they package them. They package them more securely over there in the US than they ever do here. It's only cardboard over here, basically.
It's like Amazon. It's like cardboard in an air bubble.
Yeah, or like
lucky.
But that's, I mean, it's better if it's tied on right on cardboard instead of just some air room, which would be filled up by this, as you said, air pocket. That could burst any time. So it's still better than Amazon, but it's the pricing I'm going at. So IC has served me well, and as well as their sister company now, DCB Service. But I'm not really going out to attack Instocktrades either, but I've just never talked about how I started to view it, because I started to see why it worked so well for them. And of course, it's also literally, how could you not see that? But I was seeing how it got people to buy into more that they maybe wanted, because out of the market on Instocktrades that they have their 50% off on omnibus now, a less so for Marvel titles, I guess, with the shift and everything, and their 2% off added to your each time you made an order, you got
Right.
extra
The
2% off
the
for
loyalty
the next
discount.
exactly for
Yeah.
the next 8 days forward and so on, and you could always link up to the next week to keep that going. And of course, $50 or more free shipping within the United States. So of course that never affected me in a way, but I don't know which one of those sort of pricing that makes people buy into more than maybe they ought to or
Right.
really thought to, because I would see on different Facebook groups questions like, okay, guys, I am $48 in my cart. Give me an advice on any book that I should add so I can get free shipping.
Yeah.
Yep.
Myself, I cannot see how you are thinking that. Sure, you're maybe up for maybe $5 to $10 on shipping costs now because you're under $50, but here comes the guys that recommend you this book for $30 to $40, maybe $50 if it's on omnibus, and you think you made a good deal on a book that you never heard of.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No, in those times they sell, or I don't know if they still do because it's been a while since I bought from them, but they used to sell like these Dark Horse. They were almost like annuals, but but they were just Dark Horse like magazines kind of thing, and they were like $2 or whatever. So whenever I was like shy $1 or $2, I just go throw in like 1 or 2 of like those Dark Horse magazines to get me over to the 50. And I was like, that'll work. But yeah, no, I've definitely seen people that like add a $50 book to get them over the $50 mark, and then you're like, well, all right, enjoy. I hope it's good. Hope you enjoy it.
Yeah. And just because I made some videos on backlogs and everything and how to handle them. I mean, the simple summary of it would be buy in less books than you have time to read in your month. It would be the simplest way if you want to go back to your books that you already have to rediscover those stories. But in the beginning, of course, we want everything. We want to consume as much as possible because we want to dive into these fantastic stories and universes. So I'm not blind. I'm not blind to that side. But then eventually you'll get up into those hundreds of books.
And then you go, I've read 20% of these.
Exactly. And then you get, maybe I'm in debt, or I have a cost now that I have not saved up money for because I was buying books. So now I have to sell my collection. And that's just heartbreaking because, yeah, sure, other people can now buy your books for the penny worth.
Right.
Because you're in a hassle and everything. But it's so destructing in the hobby and everything because you have to give it up so fast, faster than you accumulated it.
It is, but the one thing that I will say about this hobby compared to most other hobbies is that you can usually make your money back, if not more. Or if you do lose out, it's very little compared to like I know a lot of people like collect beer, for instance. Like there's like beer collectors where they buy like all these different flavors that like, but if you get into a bind and you're like, I need money, you can't really sell that stuff. You know what I mean? So the nice thing is that you can like my wife buys purses and I'm like, yeah, you could probably resell, but you're not gonna be able to resell as fast as I could resell my book collection. Like my hobby will pay for itself, whereas yours is just you're just stuck with whatever you buy. You know, you're
absolutely.
So that's the one bonus to this whole thing. I think it's like this, statues, and probably like toys are like the three hobbies that like you can, you know, really sort of get your money back. Yeah.
It is really weird. I never thought that especially when I started buying omnis and stuff, I never thought that omnibuses and hardcovers would become part of like the hype beast culture where they just like they're sold out so quickly and they're on eBay for triple the price within a week. I'm like, this is wild. This is a comic book. I never thought this would happen.
But. Yeah, and I think that all started like Right, like especially when the pandemic hit, like it
Yeah.
got bad. Books
Yeah.
like that you're normally or would be in stock for a year or more before they would go out of print. We're going out of print within, you know, a month or 2 months, and people are like, "Where the hell did this book just go? Like, I just bought this. Like, what happened?"
Well,
So,
if Marvel wasn't making books in China, this wouldn't happen. If they had stuck to Canada, it would have been right
Yep.
there. There's no shipping
Yep.
delays. You don't have
Yep.
to. You're not worried about a boat stuck in the harbor because of COVID. Canada's right there.
Yeah.
It's
But
true.
they betrayed us. DC's staying true though. DC's still sticking with Canada.
Still
And then
do.
they
Still
still
do.
and then they still charge you more money, even though they
Yeah.
print them in Canada, ship them to the US just to charge you
Yeah.
more to ship them back to Canada.
Yeah, but read the content and you'll forgive them. So
It's true.
No.
It's very true.
Speaking of going back, I finally, like much later, acquired Grant Morrison's Animal Man. I've read it a few times now. Flew through
Nice.
it though, and it became one of my top 5 all-time favorite books. So in the beginning, when Mike was selling us on it, I thought it was hilarious and a very stupid premise. And then I read it and I was completely blown away. And it's in my top 5 books now.
Yeah, there are so many
Nice.
books that are tough to sell, like Essex County. I tried selling Matt on it. I'm like, I don't even know how to sell you on it. Just go read it.
Yeah.
You read the synopsis and you're like, short stories about the countryside of Canada. Like, what the hell are you recommending?
Yeah, I was like, this book sounds so dumb. And he's like, just read it. And I was like, fine. So I flew through it in one night and I was like in tears when I got done. It is
So
such
good.
an amazing title. I'm so glad that I read it. But yeah, for like the longest time, I was like, I'm not reading that. It sounds stupid.
But that's always nice, not knowing what to expect, and then, as you said, just rushing through it, or not rushing, but enjoying every moment of it.
Yeah. Same thing happened to me with Why the Last Man. Someone tried selling me on that, and like the way that they sold it, I was like, this sounds stupid. Like, this is such a stupid premise. And they were like, just read it. And I was like, I guess. So I ended up reading it, and I was like, this book is fantastic. Like, there's a lot of those stories where people just don't really know how to sell you on it, and they're like, you just got to take my word for it and just read it, and then you give in, and then you're like, okay, this is incredible. Like Barry Windsor Smith's Monsters, that one is like the most recent one that oh my god, I love that book.
Yeah, the elevator pitch for comic books, I mean, there are different lengths to those in the comic book community, because we have the haul videos. I know when I showed up a book, I would say that this looked cool. I've heard great things about it. Haven't really watched or read anything about it, but it looks cool. So yeah, I bought it. And that's like the worst thing to go on to really pick up a book. And I don't have anything to like hold it up with argument wise. Then there's the review videos, of course, where you've read the video, you go through it all, or the overview videos that at least can get a hold of the book itself and how it looks and everything. And different type of strong arguments for recommendations and everything. And yeah, I try to do wrap-up videos now instead of haul videos, because I felt that now I can at least show people that I'm reading, and I can talk about the books more openly. And then as I talk openly more about them, I start to think to myself, okay, so if I talk this badly about this book, maybe I shouldn't keep it.
Right.
Get a better spectrum of what I like, and the only thing to do that is to get reading.
Yeah. And I think that's why Matt and I started doing these like hidden gem videos, or top 5 videos, top 10 videos, where we, like me for example, I'd read a ton of stuff on Comixology. Like they'd have like a European comic sale, so I'd just buy a whole bunch of them because they're like 99 cents for 64 pages, which is insane value. And so I would just read them and be like, wow, these were like 5 amazing European comics. I'll just do a video on them, so maybe other people will check them out. And I mean, especially now where I don't buy, or whenever I do buy, I guess a hardcover, it's at Matt's house, so I don't really get to read it. I've had to branch out to like, reading some stuff digitally, or sticking with, talking about a trade paperback or 5 trade paperbacks that I've read recently that I really enjoyed. But at the end of the day, I mean, I think, we're called the Hardcover Comic, but I think now we just want to talk about good comics. I mean, whether it's read digitally, whether it's read in a trade paperback, single issues, or an absolute edition, I mean, if it's an amazing story, I want to tell people about it and be like, just read this damn thing, please. Like Gideon Falls, Ice Cream Man. You know, anytime someone sees my shelf and they're like, what should I read? I'm like, you're above 18. Here's Saga. Read this. You'll like it.
That's
Don't
good.
ignore
Check the age before Saga.
Yeah, ignore it will disturb you sometimes, but keep going. It's amazing.
That's good. And yeah, of course, look beyond the name of a channel. I mean, the hardcover comic, of course, show up any comic that you feel that this is good content. And I mean, I'm Joachim Comic Center. I do videos about minimalism now. So what's going on? But
yeah, I noticed you're also moving more to the digital space as well for reading some comics and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm more open to it now. I've prepared myself mentally to read some Spider-Man books on Marvel Unlimited in case Marvel would never print the big time era from Dan Slott or even previous Brand New Day era, because I sold off my standard hardcovers that would collect all of that material.
Gotcha.
And I'm just thinking that it's the inevitable, it will happen. And if it's not, then I'm fine going with digital comics.
Yeah.
And so I haven't dove in per se yet, but I made a video going digital and it's almost kind of clickbaity here in hindsight, but I was still going digital. I made several scans of different drawings I had from my childhood. And even now, after high school and everything, discovering comic books, started to draw Batman and Spider-Man, so many Batman. And also family photos and everything. I just wanted to scan everything because as I moved back here, I felt that I was settling in, things were good. And then I was starting to think, what if things weren't good? And things started to happen. Flood in the basement or fire in the apartment. And everybody gets their life out. Of course, I'm happy. But if I could do something more to save more, this is what I can do. So started to scan some things. And one person even commented, I think I should scan my book library. And of course, I have no idea how many books that person has, but I was thinking, okay, that'll take you more time than it took for me.
Judge.
Yeah, it does sound like that's more than a full-time job.
Yeah, that dude, man. Have you ever talked to Thomas Judge before?
No,
he's another YouTube creator. He's based in the UK, but he's dude's incredible. He's a lot of fun to talk to, and he does these insane custom absolutes and all sorts of stuff where he takes them and he scans the pages. Like he's explained, it's extremely time consuming and like it's definitely a passion of like it's a love project. But he like scans all these pages, has them printed out, and he does all this at home, and then he takes them into a buddy of his that he met that does all the binding and stuff for him, and he creates these amazing custom collections that are like really, really amazing. And I'm very jealous, especially his Sin Cities that he did. And oh my
his
god,
irredeemable absolutes.
Yeah,
oh, man.
It's absolutely incredible. But yeah, he actually sits there and he prints and he scans and he does all this. And I was like, how long does that take you? And he's like, longer than you want to know. Like, I don't even want to tell you how long.
I make one book a year.
Yeah,
like that's how long it takes.
Oh god, but I guess it's when you do that type of project, and you too have dove in heavily into making your own custom binds. I mean,
yes.
And as I said, with so much content out there, how do you know what you would really love and appreciate? And I would think that with making your own custom binds, those has to be like the biggest loves in your collection.
Oh my god,
yes.
Yeah.
Aside from like the Goon Library editions and Grant Morrison by Animal Man, I would say that my custom binds are probably the most important books. And the Crow. I finally scored the Easton Press Crow edition, which took me years to get. That's up there. But aside from those, I would say my custom binds are definitely like my prized possessions.
Yeah.
What originally inspired you to discover custom binding and start making them on your own?
So yeah, Mike had kind of told me about like this is a thing, and I was like, I kind of knew it was a thing, but like I'd never really seen them. And then he said to go online, so I did, and I was like, this is amazing. And one of our good friends from back in the day, Jabo, he messaged me, and he was selling a bunch of singles from like his father-in-law or something. And one of the series that his father-in-law had was Ostrander and Mandrake's The Spectre. And I bought all 60, I think it's like 63 issues if I remember right. I bought them all for, well, actually I got them as a birthday present, but I got them all for like, I think like $200 or something like that, maybe less. I don't remember what I paid, but I think maybe $100. I don't remember. Anyway, I got all 63 issues. And
damn, my wife is watching.
It was a birthday present. My mom bought them actually for my birthday one year because I was like, hey, my birthday's coming up. I really want these books. Because this is back when I was poor and didn't have a lot of money. And so I got them, I read them, absolutely loved the story, and I was like, I think this is gonna be my very first custom bind. And so Haushin is actually local to me, and so I had reached out to a couple of the guys that did work for Haushin, Tim Benson, who's in the Unbound book room, and who I've done a lot of stuff with lately over the last few years, and then David Banks, who used to help him with Omaha Bound stuff. And I met up with David at his office. He was like 5 minutes from my office, so like we met up, and I was like, dude, here's all my books. I don't know, I didn't have them prepped, nothing. I knew nothing. Okay, I didn't know how to prep a comic. I knew nothing. And I was like, here's 63 comics with bags and boards. And he's like, all right, I'll take care of it. And because they had like full service, I mean, you had to pay for it, obviously. I think it was like around, it was about average like $75 a book for everything. And I was like, all right, here you go. And they were gone for like 6 months. And I remember thinking, like, am I ever going to get these back? It just took forever.
Just get scammed.
Oh, dude, it took forever. And I remember
took my money and my books.
Yeah, right. And I remember the day that David emailed me, and he goes, all right, we're designing them. What do you think of these covers, etc.? And I was like, oh, this is awesome. Like, these are great. And I go, but I have an idea for the spine. Can we make this happen? And I don't know if you've seen the video. Hang on, let me grab them real quick. Oh, dropping my action figure here. So these was my idea for the spine. Hang on, let me pull back.
You can see the Spectre there, and what do you have on the right?
Asmodale. So or Asmodeus. So they it was a cover that Tom Mandrake did. I can't remember what issue it is now. 30 something. Yeah, it's gonna bug me because now I don't remember what issue that was. But it was a cover that Tom Mandrake did, and I absolutely love Tom Mandrake's art. He's like one of my favorite artists. And I was like, this is absolutely incredible. I want to see if we can make this happen. So I said, can you take this cover and split it and make it so that it's
on the spines?
On the spines. And he goes, I've never done it before, but we can certainly try. And he did, and it turned out obviously incredible. And I was like, this is the most amazing thing in the world. And because of David and Tim, they set me on this new path of custom binds for life. And now I'm like completely and utterly hooked on custom binds. And this is the very first project I ever did for customs. And I will never, ever, ever part with these. I think if I were to die, I would tell my wife to bury them with me. Like, no, I wouldn't. I'd probably give them to my kid that he wouldn't care, but like I absolutely love these.
I'll take them.
Yeah, there's a few customs. There's a few customs that like I've parted with over the years, or that I'm like, I didn't enjoy this as much as I thought, or what have you. But these I will never ever part with. Like this is like my true love for books right here. It got me started on a downhill. It was all downhill from here.
I think it's an uphill, or I mean, towards better. Yeah, I mean,
that too.
Conscious. The essential reads for you. You know what you want to. They didn't print it, so I'll have to.
Yeah.
Yes. I was. I'm still surprised to this day that they never They did like the 2 trade paperbacks, and then they stopped. And I think it only collects like the first 15 issues, something like that. And then they stopped, and they just never done anything else with it. And I'm like,
classic
people
DC.
like people would buy this book in an instant if they just did it. I might even double dip just to because I love it that much.
Has that ever occurred where one of your custom binds that you have bound something that they later on actually have announced?
Yes. That happens quite a bit.
That happens often. It's funny. One of my first binds was Wonder Woman by Brian Azzarello, which since then has had 2 Absolute editions and an omnibus released for it. So I wound up getting the Absolutes, and I gifted my custom bind to Matt, who actually had Brian Azzarello sign it, which was dope. It's one of the cool perks for anyone who's never heard of custom binding. Creators, when you hand them a custom bind, they freak out. They're so excited by the fact that you wanted to custom bind comics that they wrote. They're always thrilled by it.
I thought they were freaking out because they didn't get royalties for this creation.
No, Azzarello. So funny story about that one. So like when we were waiting in line to meet him, he just looked like he was in a horrible mood. Like people were, he's like, he'd like sign it and shove it off next. Like he just, and I was like, I looked at Mike and I'm like, dude, do we have him? Like, I don't know how I feel about this. He's kind of
should we do this?
Yeah, should we do this? And we presented it to him. And do I have it readily available? I think I have it in another cabinet, but we presented it to him, and he like grabbed it, and it's just a regular cloth bind. It's not a graphic cover or anything. It's just a regular cloth bind. And he was like blown away that somebody took the time to do this. It blew his mind, and all of a sudden, like he went from like next to, hey guys, how's it going, and like just perked up and like signed it, and it was incredible.
Nice. And as you said, seeing his work, having that much love into it, I mean, who wouldn't think that, okay, these guys truly appreciate what I've done here,
right?
Going this far.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm still waiting for Matt Kint to notice how much I love him, because I've made so many videos about him, his books. He's retweeted them. He's reposted our stuff on Instagram, but not once has he reached out. I haven't tried reaching out either, so maybe he'd respond if I reached out to him. But
we did talk to him at a con though, and we were like, "Dude, we love you so much."
Right. Yeah, we were like, "Your beard's amazing."
Thanks. Like, I mean, it was funny, but yeah. So I also have a Ghostwriter bind that I did from like the Danny Ketch Ghostwriter run. I still have a lot more to do, but I did volume 1. I didn't do it very well because it was my second ever bind after the Spectre, and I didn't map it really well, so I kind of want to take it apart and redo it. But I took it to a con, and I met Jimmy Palmiotti, who did like a lot of the inks and stuff on that run, and I showed it to him, and he geeked out, and he was like, "This is incredible!" And he started telling me stories about how him and Mark Teixeira and everybody used to sit in the bullpen and draw, and all the jokes they would tell each other, and like he just lit up and started telling me all these stories and stuff. And then he sketched in it. He like took it and drew like a little quick sketch of Ghostwriter inside my book. So it was it was incredible. Creators love the custom bind stuff. And Colin Bunn's he's a huge custom binder as well. So is Matt Kent. They both have massive collections of custom binds themselves.
Nice. When was the last time that you had the opportunity to visit ComicCon? Was it right before the pandemic, or maybe
it was
some
the year
before
the pandemic for me? Because Mike didn't come down that year. He should have, but he was dating someone at the time that prevented it. So Mike didn't come down that year. That son of a bitch. But it was the year.
I was going through hell, man.
It was the year before the pandemic hit. We went, and then the year that the pandemic did hit, we were supposed to go. It was like in middle of March, and Mike was coming down. Like we were ready to do this.
We're gonna meet Garth Ennis.
Yeah, we're gonna meet Garth Ennis, and I was geeking out hardcore because I have like some Hitman customs that I wanted to show him, and I was like super jazzed, and we were freaking out, and then literally like 2 weeks before the con, COVID just took over and everything got canceled, and we're like, so yeah.
What's the thing that you miss most about the Comic-Con?
Well, for me personally, I mean, I love going to the con itself, but it's just awesome to spend time with Matt and his family.
Oh, that's what I was gonna say to you. I was gonna say, I'm gonna go second so I can be all mushy after he says something about the con, and then I was gonna say the exact same thing.
This is adorable. But yeah, it's like, I mean, I think the first year was mostly just Matt and I, but then I think the second time I visited, I met his family and I got to spend time with them all. And it's just an adventure, you know. You get to explore, you know, Kansas City in this case is usually where we've gone. Get to explore that spot. I remember we went to like an arcade bar one night and just went crazy playing some Avengers arcade game.
Yes.
I mean, we went to like I don't even know what to call it, a bar and club mall where it's like 3 floors of different themed clubs and bars.
It was actually, it was the AMC movie theater bar.
There you go.
Yeah.
I mean, it's awesome.
That's really nice. Just knowing that, of course, the comic books started it all, and the Comic-Con's there to celebrate comic books, but then in the end, it's community and connection.
Oh, absolutely.
That's what you really yearn for.
Yeah.
Hanging out with Mike, because the only time I get to see him really was during con season, because obviously we live hours and hours away. So when he would get to come down and hang out for the weekend, like that was always a blast for me, because honestly, he's actually my only like real life friend that likes comic books. None of my other friends that I talk to on a regular basis are comic book fans at all. Like they may enjoy the movies, but like they're not fans. I can't talk to them about comics. So the only person that I talk to on a regular basis that like I've met and hung out with and that I get to hang out with about comic books is Mike. That's it. I don't have anyone else. So it's always super exciting for me when he would come down. And then obviously like meeting the creators is always a blast. And we have so many like funny stories of like different creators that we've met, and all the like when we met Howard Chaykin, that was got to be one of the most bizarre encounters I've ever had with a creator. And Ryan Brown from Curse Words and God Hates Astronauts was like one of the funniest human beings that we interacted with. And there's just all of that is just epic. You know, a lot of people go for like the celebrities and the movie stars, and I don't think we've ever stood in line for any of them. Everybody we've ever stood in line for was creators only.
Yeah, we're literally like, no one's at Greg Smallwood's table. Let's go talk to him. Like, oh my God, Greg Smallwood.
We went and hung out with Greg Smallwood. The only one that we had to wait in line for a long period of time was Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo.
Yeah,
and
I can imagine.
Totally worth it. Totally worth it for Capullo.
Oh, I can imagine that too. So
we have a great picture of it. So have you seen do you remember, it was Predator? Yeah. Do you remember the movie Predator with Arnold and Carl Weathers? Have you ever seen Predator?
I haven't seen them personally. No.
Oh, there's a great scene where like in the beginning of the movie where Arnold and Carl Weathers like they're about to confront each other and you think they're gonna fight, and then like they do this and like their biceps are bulging. And it's like this insane thing. It's like this macho like
I can see it before me now.
Right? Yeah. So Mike is like the Captain America of Canada. Right? He's a brick shit house. The dude's built, and so Greg Capullo also works out. So when we were waiting in line, Mike had this wonderful idea that he was going to ask Capullo if he would reenact that scene with him, and I would take a picture of it. So we get there, and I'm like, "Are you going to do it?" And he goes, "Yeah, I'm going to ask him." And so he does. We get up there, and he goes, "Hey, man!" Like we're talking to him, and they're really cool guys, first of all. And he's like, "Will you do this photo with me?" And Capullo's like, "Yeah, let's do it." And so he stands up and they do it, and I'm back. I'm taking a picture, and Scott Snyder's photo bombing him from behind, and
that is awesome.
I think, with your permission, of course, I think we need to show that picture right here.
I'll send
Mike,
it
you still
over,
have it, dude. You still have it, right?
Yeah, I will definitely send it over.
I think we need to show the audience that picture.
I remember getting up to because I was kind of talking shit for a little while. Where I'm like, yeah, I'll definitely ask him that. But in my head, I'm like, what if he what if he shoots me down entirely, and then anytime I look at his artwork in the future, I'm just gonna remember this moment. But no, he was awesome about it. I mean, I can't really say I've had too many bad experiences. I don't want to call out certain creators either, but there was one creator who wanted to charge $50 to draw Captain America's shield on a book.
Just like a very basic, quick sketch. Like
it's like 3
10-second sketch.
It's 3 circles and a star.
Yeah, it was literally like a 10-second sketch.
You just wonder, or you know, sometimes you'll have someone's handler deal with you, and then you don't actually get to interact with the creator like they're a human being, and you're like, oh, that was awkward. That kind of sucked. But I don't blame the creators. It's a tough thing. I mean, I don't know what it's like to be, you know, I've never met Jim Lee, but I don't know what it's like to be Jim Lee at a Comic-Con. I'm sure it's the craziest thing you can imagine. Like people
so stressful, I could believe.
Yeah, it must be wild. So I don't blame anyone. It's just you know, sometimes you just have bad luck, I guess.
But mostly good experiences.
Very positive, yeah.
I can hear that, and just making me miss Comic-Con even more. I usually go for I just want to explore and document the whole experience. I'm running around with my camera for 2 to 3 hours. Then I check up on my friend. Hey, how's it going? Have you found anything? Then I go out again, just take some more shots.
Yeah.
And I really hope we can go back to that.
Yeah,
this year, always.
So too.
I hope so.
They're doing Comic-Con again here in a couple of weeks in Kansas City, but I personally don't feel safe going this year. I know that there's the MegaCon in Orlando that happens every year. Is huge. It's a huge con in Orlando every year, and they had a lot of big names, and a lot of people are now pulling out. And that con's supposed to happen in a couple weeks, and a lot of them are pulling out too because they just don't feel safe with this new variant and stuff. So we thought we were getting there back to normal, but we're not 100%
When's
there yet.
the Scotty Young variant coming out for this virus? The one that everyone likes.
It's just like a really cute looking.
Bringing up another topic then, because we sort of touched on it really, but in several videos, I think I mentioned it in every video. It's the fear of missing out, FOMO, and everything. What's your best advice to avoid FOMO in this world of content and everything? And everyone has to be on it right from the get-go.
For me, and I've said this several times in our live shows, because I learned from experience, and I don't want anybody to, you know, I mean, if you're able to afford it, great, but don't worry about it. Like, for instance, for number one, everything gets reprinted eventually. Okay. I never thought I would ever get a Hickman Fantastic Four omnibus. I thought I was gonna have to pay like $300 a book to get them, and it's one of my favorite stories, so I would have, but I was like, no, I'm gonna hold out. Sure enough, we're finally getting a reprint. Everything gets reprinted eventually. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, just buy what you can afford. Don't worry about, I gotta have the biggest hauls. I have to have the best library. My haul has to look like Omar's, or I have to have my library look like Gem Mints with 20,000 statues. You don't. If you can afford it, that's great. More power to you. But the reality is, a lot of us can't afford that. That's not feasible. But we all try to achieve that because that's the power of social media.
Yeah.
Don't fall for it. Just let it. Just don't, because you're going to end up selling everything in 6 months and you're not going to read any of it. Don't get so caught up in the chase of the book and not the actual enjoyment of reading the book. You know, if it's a book that you've been dying to get, sure, try to grab it on release day or do pre-orders like what you were saying earlier to ensure that you get it. But don't overextend yourself. Don't go into your budget. Don't put it on credit cards that you have to pay off later with high interest. Like, don't do any of that. Yeah. It's not worth it. I promise you. The other thing is too, is I used to want to be like that too. I wanted to have the biggest library, and then I got to looking around. I'm like, nobody can see my library but me. Why the hell do I care how many books I have when I'm the only one that's able to see it? Like right now, I have several but you guys can't see anything. And I'm just like, why do I care? And so I finally learned that, like, it took me a long time because several times I would overspend. And now I'm sort of to the point where I'm like, nah, I'm good. Like, and I also had to I also do a part-time work, doing voice acting and stuff to supplement my hobby.
So
yeah.
Mike, we'll get to your answer also and advice. But so if to summarize your answer, Matt, great advice. Also, I have to add.
Long-winded. I apologize.
No, I loved it. I loved it. And I mean, as you mentioned with social media and everything, the problem of self-image of what a collection is supposed to be, what comic books is supposed to be, is very much affected by what we see on YouTube channels, backgrounds, and Instagram, and all of these haul videos. I mean, it can seem with all of these haul videos that it's the only thing that it is, but it is so much more once you dive into it and look for it, that there's more meaning into it, come to actually read your books.
And that's why I think channels like, but that's why I was saying, I think channels like yours is extremely important too, because like you said, you have your minimalistic videos and things like that. And I think that's just as important for people to see and understand that, hey, he still really enjoys books. He reads everything he wants to read, and he doesn't have this massive library built around him. You know what I mean? So videos like yours are extremely important, especially for people starting out, to understand that you don't have to have 1,000 books to be cool or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I mean, the turning point for me per se was, I think I was 900 plus books something, and I had moved those 2 hours away to another city, and it takes up like 50, 60 boxes of just comic books. My father said to me, because we moved 5 full Billy shelves and 1 skinny one, and he said, when you're moving back in 2 years, you're only going to have 2 Billy shelves here, or we're not moving anything. And it's an ultimatum. And he was sort of kidding, but still I could see his point, because going up 6 flights of stairs with that really makes you think.
It takes a lot.
And with a student loan and everything going into it, and a collection of 900 plus books, it was just not going to go around with having a hobby if I didn't start to make some decisions. Because the last thing that I tackled with minimalism was my graphic novel collection. And the physical stuff.
I mean, the FOMO, I think, really all comes down to, at the end of the day, social media. I don't know how much I can really add on to what Matt said, because I think he hit most of the points. But I mean, all it is having a big collection to show off online. And honestly, after 5 seconds, no one cares. Nobody cares. They'll look at it for 5 seconds and then nobody really cares. Which was, I had a huge problem with FOMO. I mean, for at least a couple of years, I had a pretty good streak going of just buying a bunch of stuff because I didn't have a mortgage to pay. I didn't have all these bills to pay. And then reality hits you, and you start reevaluating things in your life, and you realize, well, I'm sure people can see this from our videos too. I've done a bunch of videos where I'm rereading books that I've had on my shelf that I've already read multiple times, but I'm rereading them yet again. I think that's become sort of the benchmark for a book that I keep now. Is this something I'm ever going to reread? Trying to think of what I've gone recent, like the Superman by Grant Morrison omnibus, like not the greatest work by Grant Morrison, but I'm definitely going to read it multiple times because I love Grant Morrison. And I'm sure after I read All-Star Superman, I'll want more Superman by Grant Morrison. So I'll read I mean, just buying stuff for the sake of buying it and having it looks cool. Hey, no, at the end of the day, it looks really cool to have all these books, and it looks really cool to have them in all omnibus format. But no one should feel like weird, or I don't know, like they're missing out on something if they decide I'm going to read this on Comixology, or I'm just going to get the trade paperbacks for this series. I feel like some people do. Some people feel weird getting trade paperbacks. I've literally seen posts on social media where people go, I know they're just trade paperbacks, but here's my Batman collection. I'm like,
apologizing.
yeah, like it doesn't matter if it's all trade paperbacks. You have like 3 entire runs there. That's awesome. That's great. I'm glad you enjoy those. And if that's truly what you like, then that's great. And you know what's awesome about trade paperbacks? You can bind them one day if you want to. Turn them into hardcovers. Take your time with it. There's no rush. That's the great thing about custom binding is there's no rush. You can do it at your own pace. You have full control. Whatever you want. If you want the book to be in a single page from a different series, from different publishers, and just like this weird concocted Frankenstein monster of like, it doesn't even make sense. One page is Animal Man, the next page is Preacher, the page after that is Why the Last Man. It doesn't matter. If that's what you want to do, you can do it. It doesn't matter. It's yours.
You
It's
can. Why would you?
But yeah, it's not a good idea, but you can. That's the beauty of it. You can.
Yeah, so just like you can build your own custom bind book, you can build your own collection with your own taste and views. And
exactly.
Just because something is essential for another doesn't mean that it's essential for you.
Exactly. And you never know what's going to catch on. Like maybe one day all like trade paperback focused collections will be more impressive. I don't know. You never know with these trends and how the way how things go. Not that I'm again enforcing social media or any of that, but it's just weird to sort of try and fit into the mold of what, I don't know, seems to be happening within some weird algorithm that Facebook has decided to promote certain posts based off of. It's very strange, but I just sort of got rid of, all those groups. That really helped me with the FOMO.
Yeah.
You get caught up in it really easily, I'd say.
Yeah, but it is influence in a way. I mean, comic book collectors and YouTubers doing comic book content, we're influencers, whether we like the title or not. In some way or form, we are influencing other people into buying more stuff. There's a reason why Marvel and DC doesn't do commercials for comic books, because we do it for them. I do not think that they are unaware of this type of community.
Marvel's getting very little love here, I will say. On the
but I mean, of course, we have ComicCon, so they know that we exist. They know that we talk about their books, and therefore no commercials. So we do all of the hustle and everything, and the talking.
Yeah. Well, that's one big reason too that especially for me, I've fallen in love with Boom Studios over the past year, and if anyone watching hasn't read Boom Studios titles, please do. There's a ton of amazing ones. Anything by Simon Spurrier, Berserker by Matt Kint is happening now. Once in Future, Something is Killing the Children, both of which are getting deluxes later this year. It's just so much amazing content, and it's such a small publisher that just like they nitpick and just like from what I've seen, pick out the gold in the pile. It's amazing stuff. But yeah, I mean, I never thought about that. We do technically do most of the marketing.
Yeah,
for a lot of these companies. I'll gladly do it for Boom and some IMA titles though.
And to go on with that, as we do the marketing, we also have to control all what markets we want to see and everything. As you said, follow certain people on Instagram. Might be good for you, might not be, because it creates this image of what it should be. So if you know what actually influenced you with those thoughts in any ways, maybe you can control and maybe not unsubscribe to anything really, but maybe choose what content to actually take in, what you know, what's good for you.
Right.
And I have like 2 more questions for you.
Cool.
This second to last one is kind of a double question because I don't really know how to phrase it, but with finding fandom and everything, I would ask people how you would describe your fandom per se, or what makes you a comic book fan.
That's a good question.
Yeah, I think for me, what makes me a really big comic book fan is, and this might sound kind of weird, but in some strange way, I feel like with certain comics, it's sort of like with most comics, it's almost like there are a few things. So for me personally, selfishly, it's a sort of meditation for me. It's a great way for me to block out the rest of the stresses in my life and just sort of throw myself into this, imaginary universe, and enjoy a story with crazy characters that at the end of the, no matter what crazy stuff is happening, a good comic book story will also impact your perspective on life or something within life. At least that's what I've noticed that they do for me. But yeah, I don't know. I just love being able to see, people that have ideas within their head. I'm into I guess a specific type of creator. When I look at like my top 10 writers, I can sort of see that they're all, either borderline doing psychedelics all the time, or they've got a mind that doesn't sort of fit into what I guess the mainstream would be. Which is great because they're able to tell these incredibly impactful stories that usually make me emotional as I read them. And there's just like a weird connection, I don't know, that you can feel sometimes with a really good comic book story, something like an All-Star Superman, where it's like literally a godlike character, and yet you feel this incredible connection to him. Yeah, I think that's it for me. Is it takes me to a place that nothing else I do as a hobby really does. So that's a big thing for me anyway.
I would say everything that Mike said, he said it very well. And then I guess also what makes me a comic book fan is that it's just my preferred medium of reading. I used to, when I was younger, I used to read a lot of prose and things like that. But these days I don't it's not that I wouldn't, it's just my preferred medium of reading is comic books. I like the art and I like the stories, and when you can throw them together and create this epic thing, it's awesome. It's my favorite form of reading, and I keep trying to push it onto my 12-year-old, and he's not having it. So we'll see.
Well, in your defense, comics create more jobs than prose novels because you need to hire an artist and writer at the very least.
Inker,
colorist,
tons of stuff.
Letterer.
Yeah, tons.
How many jobs you're making?
Yep.
Thank you both so much for those answers. And yeah, the last question should be an easy one.
Okay.
Where can people find you?
Oh, yeah. No, people can find us at the Hardcover Comic, so youtube.com/the Hardcover Comic, Instagram at the Hardcover Comic, Twitter at everywhere the Hardcover Comic. Yeah. I think it's pretty much where you can find us. It. Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. We don't do Facebook or anything. But yeah, and Patreon. People want to join that. We were telling you earlier, each month we do giveaways, and all the money we earn from Patreon goes back into Patreon. We don't pocket any of it or anything like that. It's just sort of our way to try to get cool books into people's hands for as little as $1 a month.
Yep.
So yeah.
Well, there you go, everybody. Thank you for Mike and Matt to do this with me, trying to find fandom in a way or another through conversation. And I would like to have you both back on here, of course. Super Definitely. Good conversation. And yeah, everybody, I'll have links down below to everything that Matt counted out, on links to all of their social media, so forth. So hope you'll check them out.
Yes, please.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, man, it was a blast. And one of these days we'll have you on our show.
Absolutely.
We'll live stream it, and so people can
I'll gladly join, and I'll have you go up 4 a.m. So thanks.
I might be up. I might be able to pull that off. I don't know how many live streamers we'll have or people watching live, but it'll be fun.
I will record it just like this one. So thanks once again, and thank you for all you that has been watching this pre-recorded interview. We have more Finding Fandom next week. So till then, this is Joachim Comic Center. This is Mike
with the Hardcover Comic.
Until next time.
Bye-bye.